if you want to be in 2 or 3 or 4 locations, there's nothing wrong with that if you can and you know what you're doing. But if you're content with one and you're successful and you're accomplishing, then don't let the word scale intimidate you or dictate whether you're successful or not. Because sometimes we tend to attach words to success. Success is what you feel it is.
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zengage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Home Care Hindsight, brought to you by Zengage. With Scheduler AI, we're helping folks with after hours and on-call. People could put their phones on Do Not Disturb and know that they're not going to miss anything important. I'm joined today by a very exciting guest. You will probably know him. You've definitely seen him around. Guy Tommasi. Guy, thanks so much for joining the show.
Well, thank you, David, for inviting me on. I'm excited about being here.
Well, good. So for people who aren't familiar with you, how would you introduce yourself?
Hello to those who do know me and to those who don't. My name is Guy Tommasi, and I've been in the industry. And when I say industry, it cut my teeth in the hospital world, transitioned over to home health, and then really the last 25 years on the home care side. And just for clarity purposes, when I talk about home care, it's the non-medical, non-licensed side for the past 25 years. And I've been fortunate to in every one of those, to have a leadership role that helped me really kind of navigate how I felt and wanted to deliver care. And from the hospital days to the home care side, in trying to always be innovative, always trying to look at how can we make it better? And 2, how do we prepare our agencies, our staff, to deliver that level of care with confidence, with professionalism? And so it really allowed me the opportunity to kind of spread the wings and, again, think ahead. Always, I'm not one to think of the day, the present. I figure that's being done. So how do we continue to look to the future to make it better? And one of those, David, is when I was on the home care side as a provider, we were the first agency in Connecticut to provide a level of service that was quadruple aim, if you recall that, with the 4 pillars of value-based care. And we were able to take that, what started as a competitive differentiator, to becoming really a leader in the industry in Connecticut, of starting with rehospitalizations and satisfaction and functional. So I do like thinking that way. And I think that's what has allowed me to be successful in helping others now get there, to think ahead and do the best you can for today, but position yourself for always the future.
Yeah, I think that was something that really stood out to me from our previous conversation is, you guys are not quite New Jersey levels of saturated and competitive in Connecticut, but you're pretty close. And it's interesting to me that really early on, relative to, I think, the rest of the industry, you guys saw the way to track and measure outcomes and really lean into the data side of home care as a differentiator, as an opportunity to deliver better care. And so talk a little bit about like the thought process or the kind of journey that you guys took to get to this is where the industry's going and how we got here in the first place.
Happy to. Back in 2016 is really when we first kind of launched this in Connecticut. And it is extremely competitive here in Connecticut. It's a non-licensure state when it comes for the home care side. So it really, sad to say, the regulations aren't to the level that they should. So everybody jumps in. And In 2016, we had about 750 agencies here in Connecticut doing that. Today, we have almost 1,100 in a state of 3.5 million people. Back then, there was some, 6, 7 agencies per square mile, all pretty much doing the same thing. We were doing ADLs and IADLs, and some of us were dabbling in dementia then. We really looked at it and said, how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we can't keep doing the same thing and expect to grow our business. So we decided to say, listen, I'm not one, and those of you out there who know me, tries to reinvent the wheel, is to develop the wheel that's already been created. And we said, you know what? If we're going to be part of this, we need to be different. And we need to not do what we think is the right thing, but do what the stakeholders are doing, which is home health and hospital. How do we become a supportive partner that they'll call us?
Yeah.
And so we said, so let's talk their language. Let's look at what they're doing and then modify it for the home care space.
Yeah.
So what we did was we looked at what was already established, which was that quadruple aim. Actually, it started with the triple aim. Then it went to the quadruple aim. And it was the 4 quadrants of population health: rehospitalization, functional outcomes, satisfaction, falls. And when we looked at it, David, we said, wait a minute. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, 80% of an individual's health outcome is non-medical related.
Sure.
And we looked at, we're doing the ADLs, we're doing the IADLs, we're doing transportation. Why don't we develop that and use that data to support our outcomes? And so we took the data and rather than to say, oh boy, what should we do? We limited to the 4 major ones that all the other stakeholders were being held accountable.
Yeah.
Hospitalization, functional, star ratings. And we mirrored that in our agency to that of what was being required from CMS. And we became a solution-focused agency. Not on the KPIs, internal, that was happening, but on what I called the key tracking metrics. Those 4 that was very focused, data-driven, and it allowed us to go to a referral source and say, hey, look at our outcomes. And we started to speak their language, as opposed to, what did we do? We always would go up on the floors of the hospitals. Hi, nurse so-and-so. Hi, discharge planner. Here's my 8x10 folder loaded with all greatness. Call me. Well, now this had the meat and the potatoes that said, here's my outcomes.
Yeah.
Compared to everybody else. And quite honestly, David, from a marketing perspective, I would go on those floors and say, here's my dashboard. The other 700 agencies that are going to come knocking on your door, ask them for their outcomes.
Yeah.
Ask them for their dashboard. We catapulted literally to the top of the referral. And not only did we become the provider of choice, we became the employer of choice, because now we were starting to get business and we were able to offer more. We were able to hire more. And really, we began to position ourselves as that strategic partner.
I think one of the things that often comes up when I'm talking to agency owners, and you've talked to plenty of people in this business. So many folks get into this business because of a personal experience or a personal story. And that is the thing that makes direct client sales go, right? You're able to say, adult daughter, I remember when I was taking care of my mom or my dad, and, they had dementia or they'd had a stroke, and I know how hard it was to be carrying the bag for that all the time. We're here to make it so that, you can go back to being a daughter again, and you don't have to keep being this caretaker that is in way over their head and super stressed. That personal story closes those opportunities in so many ways. And of course, you've got to be able to answer all their questions, and you've got to have some kind of industry expertise, and a dementia certification helps a lot. But when people go into referral sources, I think a lot of times they lean back on that story of, hey, the reason I got into this is because, and that while that solves the very real pain and anxiety for a prospective client and their family, it does nothing for a referral source. And so I think the thing that really stands out to me is that you learned how to translate the work that you were doing that in many ways was identical to the work everybody else was doing, but translating that work in a way that connected with the problems that your stakeholders were seeing every single day.
And you're absolutely right. From a client family perspective, they want to know that you've experienced what they're going through. Absolutely. I did that with my father specifically. That's how so many of us got into this.
Yeah.
And they want to hear those stories that they know you could relate. And those who were a little bit more advanced, especially the daughters or the kids, would say, okay, they didn't ask a question like, how do you take care of mom and dad? And what do you do? And do you have any data to support some of that? On the referral side, they want to know, what are you going to help me with today? And that's why I say when you get into this, and when we got into this, and what I encourage so many is, don't look at it from your perspective as to how good you could be. Look at it from their perspective. We need to get patients out of the hospital. And today, they don't want them coming back, especially within those 30 days. They want to know what those functional outcomes are. Is their patient able to ambulate, able to be independent? And what is the satisfaction? We want to know, because that also impacts on their age caps. They want to know, hey, is our patient happy with your service? So you have to come at it from two perspectives. One, from the personal, story side. Know who your audience is, right? We always say, know who you're marketing to. And two, how do you become that solution? How can you be a valued partner? And that's the X factor that we tend to sometimes forget, is we want to come in and say, look at how great we are. Well, they don't care. They want to know, okay, how you going to keep Mrs. Jones home and safe and independent, and she's not coming back.
Yeah.
They want to know that.
I had somebody ask me a question the other day at an event, or tell me about an experience they had going to a hospital system. And, hospitals, high volume of discharge, seems extremely stressful, really valuable potential partner. But they got a meeting with this discharge planner. And that person said, we don't have anybody we don't ever see anybody who's private pay. And since I've got you here, and this is top of mind for me, what might you have said? Because you guys were, in large part, a lot of private pay within your agency. What might you have said if you'd gone to somebody and they're discharging a high volume of patients? Some of those have the means to pay for private duty services. How would you have responded when they said, we do all these discharges, but we don't have anybody who could afford private pay?
My answer always is, if you really consider yourself a patient advocate and this service was free, would you refer them for care? If money wasn't an issue, do you feel that the services that patient needs that we can provide would be beneficial? Not once, David, did anybody say, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Their answer is, well, absolutely. I said, then trust us to work with that client and that family from a financial perspective. We do it every day. Your function, your role, and I used to get very animated. I used to get very passionate, sometimes a little angry when I would say that. And I would say, listen, send them, make that referral. We do this every single day. Before we even do anything, we work with the client, we work with the family. Can they afford it? Don't assume they can't. That is the worst thing you can do. It's insulting, because I come from an old Italian family where my grandfather still had money in the mattress. And if you looked at him, you would say, I don't know if he could afford it. Well, you know what? He could. And he did. Look at it from a patient perspective. Is the services that are being offered going to benefit? And then let us do what we do best. Believe me, I say to them, we will never say no to that patient when it comes for care. If we can't match it, we will make sure that another agency can help that client. They will
Yep.
not go unserviced, but don't assume they can't afford it. I said, that's like me saying, going into a home, looking at a patient's wound and say, that's not that bad. Here's a Band-Aid. You'll be fine. The nurses would kill me.
Yeah.
Right? Think about that. They would be, who do you think you are? You don't know about that. Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you is make the referral. Do what you do best. Let the agency do what they do best.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you that patient will not go unserviced one way or the other.
Mm. I think that that last thing that you just shared is the most impactful there and kind of protects from downside risk mitigation, because I think that's probably the reason that they're not making referrals to home care is they're like, well, what if I send them there and it comes back to me, well, they couldn't help us and so now we're out of luck. It's like, look, this is not going to come back to you. This is somebody that if we can't take care of them, we will make sure that they get care. And I think that if you're going to be pretty bold in your ask to say, send us to them, you've also got to be pretty like committed to the outcome of like, once you send them to us, we've got it from there. And it's
Right.
either going to be us or it's going to be a trusted partner that we can vouch for. And again, back to the dashboard, we care about these outcomes and we're measuring this and we're making sure that this is going to be a good referral for you to have made. So I love it. Okay, we're like 15 minutes in here. This has been really good so far, but I've got to take a hard left into what kind of person are you? And Guy, in order to ask you that question, I want to ask, you've got the Men in Black Neuralizer that like flashes and can erase your memory. What's the thing that you erase your memory of?
Okay. Well, I'm going to apologize to any of my friends who happen to be on the dark side. But what is the 2004 World Series between the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox? I know that I should be grateful for so many things, and I am. But if I could erase, it's that as a New York Yankee fan, being up 3-0 and then losing 4 in a row and watching my friends celebrate that World Series victory that they waited since 1820 to get was just heartbreaking. And I think I needed, my parents were getting concerned and my wife was getting concerned that I was just couldn't leave my room. And, if, so shallow. Okay. I'll give it to you. But if I could remove anything, that would be it.
so Guy, this tickles me because my intention in writing this question in the first place was there's like a work of art or a movie or a book or something that you love dearly and you want to erase your memory of that so you could go back and experience it again for the first time. Now, understanding the way I framed the question, it's valid to go the other way and to say the worst thing that ever happened to me was the Yankees losing 4 baseball games in a row in 2004. But I just it made me laugh that when I was thinking of what is the magical event in your life that you'd like to go experience again, you read that question and you thought, what's the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to me? And I'd like to erase it. And both are legitimate, but it was unexpected to me. I love that.
And I'm sure there are other tragic things that I do want to remove, but for this popped in, and again, that's 2004, and it's still it's funny, David, that even today, my friends, who are the Red Sox fans, it will say, well, we'll look at the standings and they'll say, yeah, well, don't forget 2004, we'll come back again. And it's like, oh, all right. Score 1 for you.
Yeah, man. Okay, well, I want to talk about, obviously you're here because you've got a pretty storied career in healthcare and in home care in particular. People come to you for advice on how to run their agency, but I bring people on who are really accomplished to talk about the big mistake that they made in their career and how that mistake changed the way that they think about life and their business. And so, Guy, what's your big mistake?
One of the big mistakes is in being in a leadership role is I always felt like I was the one in charge. And as a result, I had to make all those decisions. And yes, in a leadership role, there's decisions you have to make um, that you just do. But I realized that in order to be successful, in order to accomplish what you want, you really need to include key people who are going to make that happen. You know, when we talked earlier, David, about when we started in 2016 doing the data, taking in what we thought we needed, that's when it really kind of registered with me that you cannot just think you can do this on your own. That, oh, here's what we're going to do. Because when I first introduced it, you saw the expression among the team, like their faces dropped. It's like, oh no, not again. And I, until I realized the only way we're going to make this successful is if we include everybody. I need to say, what do you think? Here's where I want to be. Here's where we need to be. Now I need you to help build that roadmap. And being in that team environment was actually energizing. They felt ownership. They felt committed. They made it a priority. They would come into my office saying, hey, Guy, what do you think about this? And hey, you know, if we change this around, I think we could be more effective. So I realized that the mistake I was making was not including people. And I know you get the pushback of, well, you know, you can't always lead with a group. You know, you just can't. And I get that. And I say to everyone out there who are successful, chances are you've been very successful because you've included people on your journey. You've partnered, whether it's formal or informal. You've said, what do you think? How can we make it better? Because I'm just, you know, I'm here. I'm in charge. Okay, great. But I'm not the doer. I'm not out there making it happen. I'm not talking to the patients on the level that my caregivers and my staff had to. And so once, you know, my stubbornness, if you will, or my thick-headedness said, enough. You can't be this island. You need to bring in people to get their buy-in, because that was the key thing. And once it clicked, I got to tell you, David, I stepped back because they really took charge.
Yeah.
My job then was to share this program and share what we were doing. But the worker bees were making it happen, not because they had to, because they felt vested in this project. And they knew the why and why we were doing it. And once I kind of released the reins, they did a phenomenal job. And what it said to me was, you know, like, give these guys credit. Yeah, they're pretty smart people. They're in this industry. Let's face it. We are in this industry, most of us, is because we want to make it better. We've had personal experiences, like we've said. It's in our DNA. Same thing on our staff level. They're in this because they want to be. And in doing so, they want to do it right. And they want to be good at it. They need me and us as leaders to help them, but they're the ones that make it work. And so once I gave up those reins, if you will, things really, really took off.
Is there a particular person on your team that you can remember that this kind of mindset shift impacted to the greatest degree?
Oh, absolutely. We had a client supervisor.
Yeah.
She was our coordinator, who kind of was, I would say, just kind of going along through the motions. You know, she had been there a couple of years and loved what she was doing, but I knew that she needed more. And I called her in and I said, I need you to be the lead of this program. And she looked at me and she said, no one ever told me I was going to be in charge of a program. So, well, you're it. You've done a great job. I can't do this. I don't know everybody as intimately as you do. You know the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're going to run it. And David, you saw her sit up in that chair, almost like put that cape on. And she went out and she developed the formula on how we were going to collect this data in order to be able to show it back to our referral sources. So much so that I hired a different person, another person for her old job, because she was so, doing such an incredible job. So she was the success story and the program's success because of her. I might have thought of it, but she made it happen. And and let me tell you, it was all I can do to control her because she was so invested and so excited. At times I used to say, okay, how they just step back for a second. So
I think that's an exciting kind of point in leadership to get to, is instead of feeling like you've got to kind of drag folks along, like, by the nose almost, to get them to do the stuff you need them to do, to instead feel like, okay, my job now as a leader is to direct this energy and prevent people from burning themselves out and take care of them as people, because if I take care of them, they'll take care of the business.
absolutely.
But I think so often people are dealing with a low morale or a kind of unmotivated team, and feel like, oh, I've got to energize these people, I've got to get them excited. And the shift, it sounds like for you, was once we got these people bought in and gave them ownership, it was really about preventing them from having that energy go all over the place, and instead strategically directing that energy in the right place and letting them do what they woke up every day excited to do.
Along with that is they were able to get the buy-in even more so from our professional caregivers. There was a connection there that I never had.
Yeah.
Because I was the owner of the boss, there was that disconnect, I think, just by default. Even though everybody got along well and we had a great team, there was there was a trust maybe factor where she was able to go and sit down and she could say things to them that I would never be able to say, but it was enough to motivate them to do the job and accomplish the task that was needed in a way that I could not have done that without, pushback or bigger problems.
Yeah. Very good. Well, I want to transition to the next part of the show where I ask you about something that you think is totally overrated in this industry. People think it's, the bee's knees. There you go. But you think it's actually not that great.
Yeah, I got to see this more and more now that I'm on this side of the industry and being out with a lot of agencies. What I feel is overrated and to some degree hurtful is the term scale or scaling. And we hear that all the time. And in talking with different agencies, they feel that if they don't have quantity of agencies, if I don't, oh, Guy, I only have one agency, and I say to them, oh, that's okay. Are you happy with that agency? Are your margins fine? Are you making money? Are you paying your bills? Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you want more agencies? Well, no, but you're sometimes looked at, if you don't have 3 or 4 or 5, you're not successful. And I want to say, don't use that word scaling to justify success. Okay? Because success is in the mind of the beholder. It's what you feel is in your best interest as an agency, as an organization, as the owner, as the director. So if you want to be in 2 or 3 or 4 locations, there's nothing wrong with that if you can and you know what you're doing. But if you're content with one and you're successful and you're accomplishing, then don't let the word scale intimidate you or share or dictate whether you're successful or not. Because sometimes we tend to attach words to success. And, success is what you feel it is.
Yeah.
And so when I hear that, and when I hear people say that, it's disheartening because I don't want that to ever deter or prevent them from moving forward. And they could continue to grow, It doesn't mean they have to have 4, 5, 6 offices. It doesn't mean they need to be national or have a partnership with some, behemoth company.
Mhm.
And so when I hear scale, and I want to share this with your audience, is scale is what you feel is best.
Mhm.
Don't be intimidated if you're talking to a peer and he or she says, yeah, I've got 5 agencies. We're doing 20 million a year. Good. Wish them well. And as my mom would always say to them, more power to you. But look at yourself. And if you say, well, I'm okay, I'm happy, then you're successful.
Yeah.
So that's what I see. And we see it all the time, David, right? Oh, we've got to scale. We've got to scale. And yeah, there's importance to that. There's truth to that. And there's meaning behind it. But don't let that steer you in a direction that, hey, let's face it. I know people who felt they needed to have multiple agencies because that's what their competitors were doing. And today they're in a totally different environment because they're closed. They've gone out
Mm.
of business.
Mm.
So that's, and if I can share one more, and I don't know if it's overrated, but when I hear the word unskilled, that's insulting to the professional caregiver. And I know why we have to say unskilled. There's
Right.
a whole CMS, Medicare, skilled versus unskilled. Maybe we call it non-clinical, but to say to a professional caregiver who's doing a Hoyer lift, who are using a gait belt, who are using Sarah lifts, who are doing pivoting, ambulating, to call that an unskilled service, I
Mm.
think we do them and the industry an injustice.
Mm.
And for something that very few people can do in a loving, caring environment. And
Yeah.
that's my second piece of the editorial.
Yeah. Look, I love a 2-for-1. I love getting a bargain. I don't think I paid you to come on here anyways. So checks in the mail, I guess. Okay. Let's talk about a little mistake that you see home care owners make all the time. And if they quit, it'd make their lives or their businesses like 10 times better.
It's a great question because, again, if 10 times better is huge.
Yeah.
And to leave that on the table, what I see a lot, again, on the home care side, and I saw it even when I was competing as a provider.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to go back, but having that differentiation was significant.
Yeah.
Is too many of our agencies leave business on the table because they think it's not appropriate for them. This word clinical gave, for example, the hospital at home program, it's a growing program. It's getting a lot of interest. We as an agency were the first non-medical in Connecticut to participate in one.
Yeah.
When I talk to other owners and leaders, they're like, nope, hospital, that's nurses, that's doctors, that's not us. We hear about PDGM. Well, I don't even know what that means, Guy, but I'm sure that's home health. Well, do you know that part of the scoring, those functional outcomes, are all ADLs? You could be a part of that. Home health value-based purchasing. Oh, no, that's all about OASIS. Well, there's 35% of that are the HCAPs. We do it every day. We ask our clients, are you satisfied with the service? Would you hire us back? Don't assume, the old saying with that.
Yep.
But don't assume because it's not something that is unforeign or something that you used to. Don't assume that it's not good, that you can't participate. And I see the amount of revenue that's left on the table because
Mhm.
the assumption is that's a clinical, that's a medical, that's not us. We don't do that. Well, if you start peeling back that onion and look in value-based care, you heard me say earlier, 80% of an individual's health outcomes is non-medical related. That's not Guy Tommasi. That's the Kaiser Family Foundation. So with 80%, There's some $260 billion in care that's being transitioned over to the home. Okay, CMS is transitioning. There's opportunity. 80% is sitting there on the table. If we just open our eyes and not assume, oh, not us, because there is the opportunity. So that's what I see as the big mistake, David. We're too quick to make judgment. And I think part of that might be, oh, that's just another thing. I've got too much going on right now.
Yeah.
I can't take on another thing, Guy. Okay, I get it. I was the same way. I was like this. We had to get done what we had to get done. But the leader, the ones who want to grow are the visionary ones who say, what else is out there? 51%, a study was just done by Home-Based Home Care and Home Health Care News. 51% of home health and home care agencies are developing programs for a higher acuity care in the home. 51%. So the mindset is moving there. It's a new way of reimagining care in the home. But I say to these owners, don't leave it on the table. Don't assume it's not you. At least give it a try. At least look into it. You may come back and say, not for me. Okay, it's okay. But don't do that without at least giving you that opportunity to say, not for me. Because you might be, holy crap, this is pretty good stuff. And it could be the differentiator for your agency in that area.
And I think, nobody knows how to speak the language of the kind of clinical home health world without kind of diving in and feeling a little bit out of your depth and, kind of learning on the fly and sounding, a little dumb sometimes. But I think if we can lean in and solve problems with home health as collaborators, because they don't have all the pieces figured out. There's a whole other side to the way that we work, distinct from the way that home health works. And they know, as little about our world as we know about theirs, just enough to be dangerous. And so,
and if I could jump in, where those words are so powerful is in the hospital world, dealing with this hospital at home program. I was just in Boston in June for a hospital at home leadership summit. And those who are in the programs, who are hospital-based programs, are realizing they don't do home care well. They're realizing that home care agencies, home health, home care agencies, do it best. Why? Because we're used to a mobile workforce. We're used to scheduling on the fly. We're used to only an hour or two in the home. Hospitals aren't used to that. So I think that's why we're starting to see opportunities open up more and more, because hospitals, using them as the example, are realizing this other industry does it best. And that's who we need to partner up with in order to keep these patients home and safe.
It's good stuff. Okay, I want to transition. We've talked about a lot of mistakes that have been made, but I like to end every episode on a high note. So what's something that's happened lately in your business that you're really proud of?
Really proud, and we were just actually talking about it. I become a very strong proponent, again, as you know, in being innovative and thinking outside the box and wanting to be a strategic partner. We just helped an agency sign on with a hospital for a hospital at home program. They were the first in their whole county to take that leap of faith, to go and talk to the hospital, used measurable data outcomes that we helped with, and they were told, as they shared with us by that discharge planner, we've not seen any other home care agency come to the table with these numbers, with this type of information. And they were invited to be part of that hospital at home program. They leaped. Well, I shouldn't say she said leaped, but my guess is that the hospital had its own home care company, but they brought this group on as an additional partner. And I really believe that having those outcomes was the differentiator that allowed the medical program, the managing company, to say, you know what, we need to latch on with these guys, or at least invite them to be part of the program.
Yeah.
So we're really proud of that. I was really proud of the agency owner who was willing to step outside her comfort zone.
Sure.
And realized, okay, let's give this a shot. And as of last week, was still pretty successful. So
that's great.
We're pretty proud of that.
Well, before we get out of here, what would you like to plug?
What I want to plug is our industry. And I still say our, and it's the home care industry. I want to plug that we're at the best time ever to be a not so much supportive, but a strategic partner. I want to encourage all of you who are listening to don't be afraid to kick open the door, to be aggressive, to use data as your sounding board. The data is what's going to give you the credibility. We're in the best position we've ever been. We have a ways to go because of education, but don't be afraid to step up, whether you're a one single agency or you've got 100 agencies. Be bold. Don't be afraid to say, well, they don't know about us. Make it happen, because this is the best time. Look at the home health side and all the reimbursement issues they're going through. They're going to need partners. They're going to need good strategic partners. Who better than to help them? How many times do we walk into a home and we're all taking care of the same patient? Talk about a need for interoperability. You know, the poor patient's like, you're going to ask me these same questions again?
Right.
Let's get out of the silos. Let's start working in a collaborative way, with home care being the driver, not the rider. Be the driver. And that's the plug. It's out there. It's being embraced. The timing is now. Don't be afraid to go get it.
Well, Guy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Had a great time, and this is a great episode that I know our listeners are going to love.
Great. Thank you so much, David. I really enjoyed myself. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and to encourage the industry, and have a great day. And thank you again.
Yeah, sounds great. On behalf of the team here at Zengage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zengage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.